Today we'll be looking at a newly released indie horror game, and this one is called Enigma of Fear. I had this on my wish list for a while, and I've really enjoyed playing this one. The game looks amazing and it had some really cool puzzles too. It is on the difficult side and does not hold your hand at all. This game and the world it's set in is actually part of a much larger world created by Rafael Lange, also known as Cellbit, and it takes form as a tabletop RPG called Paranormal Order. Teaming up with Dumativa, this game recently released after 4 years of development and was a crowd-funded production. Unfortunately, I don't know too much about this universe and its lore, nor do I have the time to research and explain everything about this universe, as there are numerous campaigns, with each video of the game being played being about 4 hours per episode. But that's fine, as you can easily go into this game not knowing about the wider connected universe. The game had enough standalone story and lore to make this a decent storyline by itself. I'm not going to say too much more other than there will be spoilers in this video for Enigma of Fear, but that's enough intro, let's jump in. Mia, a paranormal investigator, has arrived at a place called the Perimeter, a place that does not technically exist. She's there in search of her missing father, Mr. Verity. A letter from him indicates that he knew that she was going to be looking for him at some point, stating that there's a truth that haunts him and a fear that he's tried to forget. Mia and her father are part of something known as the Order, a group which is essentially an order of paranormal investigators called Realitas. Speaking with a hacker called Samuel, he says that over 20 years ago a bunch of Order agents went missing whilst investigating in that exact area. She also speaks with Agatha, and she's very clued up when it comes to information around the paranormal. She messed with the paranormal at some point previously, and now, in her words, she's stuck with a wound that will never heal. Exploring the area, Mia discovers strange glowing stones. Continuing up on the path, Mia finds her father's car and his driver's license on the front seat. There's also a crate in the trunk, and it appears to have held a weapon of some sort inside it. Sending her faithful companion, her dog Loopy, through a hole in the fence, and with him opening the gate, she comes across a mansion. The door is boarded up, but she gains access to the cellar. She is then attacked by what's called a blood zombie, which only appears after many people have recently died, and they rise from the deceased bodies. Anyway, after killing it, she finds a strange and black note which features a symbol along with a message addressing her father, stating that he will come back, and mentions the Enigma of Fear, that the god of fear shall be among them. Activating her UV light, Mia finds a secret message on the back, stating that only she can do this. Is someone leaving messages for the Order? Mia also finds a crowbar and uses that to smash the board on the door. Entering, she finds the place in a little bit of a mess. It's clear that a family lived here, but judging by the family photos, it's clear that something about this family was off. Through exploration, Mia discovers that the family was a family of 4, named the Strack family, and it consisted of the father and head of the family, Abraham, the mother, Andrea, the son, Goliath, the grandmother, Tiana, and another son, Yuri. Tape recorders lie about, as well as Order investigation equipment, indicating that the Order were investigating the Strack family. And according to an agent, Callisto Bassat, the family had been exhibiting hermit-like behaviour, and that every generation of the Stracks has been the same, living in isolation, away from society. Sounds perfect to me, but anyway. Mia finds a weird chapel inside the house and finds another black note. This one speaks of the prophecy of the Unhaunted One. She finds a jar with some eyeballs in it, and the book on the lectern, which features the symbol on the front, shows some weird stuff too. It depicts more symbols and a mysterious being sat on a throne with the symbols all around him. It also depicts a baby, tormented people, and spirits leaving their bodies. The child then is shown having the symbol on them with evil beasts all around them. Standing on a rock, the person looks at the sky and sees a large eye looking back at them. Part of the page has been torn out of the book. Mia also listens to a recording of one of the Strack family. It looks like the Stracks were part of a cult and they worshipped fear. It revolves around that strange symbol and their reverence towards the symbol called the Mark of Fear. This goes back centuries. That symbol is all over the house and drawn on the black notes that Mia finds. It also seems that this family, judging by audio recordings, are obsessed with something they call the rise of the Unhaunted One. Mia finds a heavy door locked by a mechanism that requires 3 symbols. Beside this door is also radio equipment so that Mia can contact Samuel and Agatha and ask them any questions that she may have. A trail of UV paint leads upstairs and Mia finds a note. The note speaks of a possible theory on the source of the paranormal goings-on. It mentions that the blood zombies may be a direct result of something that the Strack family had seen in a vision that, of course, is directly connected to the rise of the Unhaunted One. Entering Tiana's room, which bizarrely had the sound of someone playing music inside and was blocked from the inside, stepping out onto the balcony and looking out across the forest, Mia looks into the distance and spots something out there, a glow in the distance. Going off of the clues from the note and from a diary penned by one of the children, Yuri, Mia is able to find 3 numbers that relate to the exact time that the family had their vision. This time coincides with symbols on a clock, and putting those symbols into the large door, it opens. Heading down, Mia finds herself in the cellar, and after defeating many blood zombies, she moves into the pantry, and inside there, she discovers loads and loads of words scrawled about the place. Words that speak of the Enigma, the other ending, and her father's name too. A single blood zombie is in the center of the room. Picking up a page in the middle of the room, more odd symbols are on it. Something happens, and then Mia discovers an exit. The exit leads to an underground facility that had been used by the Order for years. It's seemingly abandoned though, as there is no one about. She finds a medical report on numerous agents, the ones who went missing a while ago, and it mentions a number of areas in which those agents were working. The underground, where Mia currently is, the Spiral Castle, the Crystal Cave, and the Graveyard of Melodies. It's discovered that Verity had at one point abandoned the Order agents, although it's not really clear yet as to why. Navigating the underground using a map, Mia's UV light reveals different exits, and the fact that this underground facility is linked to the major areas inside the perimeter. Moving outside, Mia is ready to explore and find out what happened to the missing agents, and where her father may be. Now, I need to mention from this point on, the game is open world, and the player can do things how they choose. But in order to explain things in a concise way, I'll break down each area and then explain in better detail what exactly is going on here. So Mia heads to the Graveyard of Melodies. Getting there, Loopy starts to whine, and it's because he is sensing entities nearby, the ghostly echoes of the missing Order agents, and using her radio, she is able to use it to tune into what the ghost echoes are saying. She discovers a number of research tents, and discovers that the agents sent to work in the Graveyard of Melodies were the group leader, Letitia and her trainees, Fernanda, Theo, Beto, Rossi, and Amy. The group were there to reach what was known as the Great Fissure, the luminous area that Mia saw from the Strack Mansion's balcony. However, when they would try to find the fissure, they found it difficult, as when attempting to navigate the graveyard itself, it seemed to shift whilst walking through it, making it feel like they were revisiting areas they'd already walked through. They would also hear strange melodies playing inside the graveyard. Fernando was tasked with mapping the graveyard so they'd find it easier to navigate. But something happened to Fernanda. A medical attendance form indicates that Fernanda was suffering from itching of the neck area, but more importantly, hallucinations. Hallucinations of what, exactly? Cats. Fernanda was seeing her cats, and the other agents would begin to notice Fernanda's behavior changing.
Hey yo, listen. Is it me, or is Fernanda acting weird ever since she came back from the graveyard today?
I know, right? She was all itchy and stuff. Wouldn't stop talking about some cats.
She seemed obsessed about them. Poor thing. I wonder if she did see those cats that looked like her own. You know, the ones that died?
I'm worried that this graveyard maze is messing with her head while she's trying to do all that mapping.
Eventually, thanks to Fernanda's prior efforts, the agents were able to use the graveyard and navigate around to the different areas by following strict instructions and directions. A letter written by Verity to Letitia then confirmed the disappearance of Fernanda, and Verity authorized the commencement of a search for her, but they would not be able to find her. So that was Fernanda's job. Theo and Beto, on the other hand, would identify the links between the melodies and the paranormal goings-on in the graveyard, whilst Rossi and Amy would identify the luminous graves, their markings, and their significance. Theo would hear the melodies playing through the different gateways in the graveyards. However, upon recording them, it recorded his footsteps and his voice, but not the melody that he was hearing, indicating that the melody is inside one's head. They also discovered that the echoes were related to the melodies heard to the marks they were finding on the gravestones.
After I managed to adapt the equipment and capture the perceived sound frequencies in the graveyard area, we analyzed the sound static, and finally, I found something. It seemed to be just static and noise, but when you separate the frequency layers, some incomprehensible fragments begin to appear. Distorted information, as if they were voices. Listen to this. Now, pay attention. I will separate the sound layers. Amy has already tried to retrieve some information on these recorded frequencies, but she said it's way too fragmented to understand anything.
At some point, Beto attempted to use one of their radios to pick up frequencies emitted from the fissure, but then, quite bizarrely, the radio snapped in half. Theo wrote a note saying that he would leave the radio with Amy. Speaking of Amy, her and Rossi's discoveries are also pretty significant. They found that the markings on the gravestones are all unique, but also that the marks bear similarities to the Mark of Fear.
Since Rossi found out that these graves are actually rocks that sprouted from the ground, my theory is that the marks also appeared along with the graves, in a paranormal way. Their shape really resembles that of the giant fissure that we can see from afar in the graveyard. These marks must have something to do with that fissure, but we still need to learn how to get there in order to investigate. But the weirdest thing is actually the information written alongside these marks. These names and phrases, it's as if the paranormal was trying to make a record of something using these graves.
What's more is that they found their own graves there, as well as ones belonging to the other agents. Judging from an echo conversation between the pair, it appears that Rossi and Amy had grown close and were going to wait until after the investigation to make their relationship official. But as you'll discover shortly, that would not happen. A letter from Theo to Amy mentions the cracked radio, and that this cracked radio is the closest they have come to playing the Fisher melody, and he tells Amy to put it in a safe place, and not to let Rossi mess with it, as he'll likely lose it. It turns out that Amy didn't put it in a safe place, as Rossi put the cracked radio in a puzzle box as a gift for Amy for her birthday, and Theo would frantically try to find the clues to the box, as he needed to recover the radio. It seems that Theo also had feelings for Amy, as he had planned a similar gift for her birthday. His gift was a padlock, which was unlocked via certain movements. After he scrapped his gift for Amy, upon learning about Rossi's gift, he decided to use it to lock a set of gates, and for good reason. Behind the gates was a gravestone. On Callisto's advice, Theo had used something called an immersion ritual, which was forbidden for Order agents to use, in order to try and find the Melody of Fear in the markings on the gravestones. But he had seen something. It was Rossi's ending.
Well, you're the one who's all pissed off. What are you gonna do? Kill me?
Wait, how do you know?
What are you talking about?
Wait, what are you talking about?
Why did you say I would kill you? Tell me, what did you see?
No, wait. No fucking way. My vision.
Rossi? Theo?
All this time, it was you.
Rossi, what? What are you saying?
What I'm saying is that maybe this motherfucker is going to kill me.
Stop saying that, man! Just stop! You're saying exactly what... Holy shit, you can't say that!
For God's sake, Theo, calm down.
I'm not gonna do it.
You're right. You're not gonna do it. You know why? Because I won't let you.
No, man. Don't do this.
Rossi?
I'll bring about the other ending myself!
No, stop! Stop, please!
These are things that the agents termed déjà vus. It was by this point that Verity had abandoned the agents, leaving them worried, and had also left them demoralized. This event had led to many conversations between the agents, who were all worried about what they had seen. But what about Letitia's task?
Unfortunately, I still don't know how to get to the fissure. We keep investigating, but we're taking care so that what happened to Fernanda doesn't happen to anyone else. The fissure seems to be the hardest area to find a way through. And that's odd, to say the least. I mean, I can clearly see what it is looking down from the highest part of the hill, which is where I found the grave with my name on it. After what Amy and Beto found out, I believe more and more that understanding that fissure is the key to also understanding how people's memories actually work in this graveyard. But this is still more of a hunch than a theory per se. We will keep trying to find our way to the fissure. But, again, following all safety protocols. This is a big one. A very big one. Finally, after so long, I managed to find the path that leads to the Grey Fissure area. Beto figured out how to synchronize the sound frequencies. He did it with the use from the Spire Castle, and he was able to pick up much more substantial information than anything we had managed so far. I tested the use on my own mark, and I had the same result that he did. I was taken by a feeling of deja vu that made me understand the path to the fissure, as if I had been there before. The place is breathtaking. The luminosity from the fissure and the melody that plays from it seems to be alive. Once I got there, I also figured out why we'd never seen any graves from the Stra family. They are all there, around the fissure. I poured the use on Diana Stra's mark, and I have the feeling that I've learned something crucial to understanding the graveyard. It's a song. Apparently, I can still see the score in my mind. I just can't stop hearing it. I'm at the top of the hill. I'm going to try to play just a part of the song on this instrument, which I believe might be connected to the emergence of the fissure. This is dangerous, but I need to see if there's going to be any kind of reaction. If anything happens, I will stop. All right. Not this. Me. The melody. The fear. Enigma. My memories are not mine. Everyone. I want to play. No. I must destroy it.
In an echo of a conversation between Theo and Beto, it's revealed that Theo used the ritual on Letitia's gravestone, which is located above her studio on the hill, and he saw Letitia with a pickaxe completely smashing up and obliterating Tiana Strack's gravestone. As heard from her earlier recording, she was constantly hearing the melody. Beto went to go and talk to her back at her studio. He told her that everyone else is dead, that it's over, and they should get out of there and forget everything. He explains that Verity left after they all had the vision. Beto says that Callisto told him that there's no escape from the perimeter. Letitia emerges. She's dubious about their chances of escaping, and Beto says Verity did escape, but then Beto is shot by Callisto, whilst another individual is stood next to him. Using the instructions mapped out by Fernanda, Mia makes it to the garden area, which features a mausoleum. It contains statues of the previous Strack generations, all of them at one point the leaders of the Cult of Fear. Beside the mausoleum, a dead body lies there alongside Rossi's unsolved puzzle box. Solving it gives Mia the cracked radio. Throughout the graveyard, Mia encounters corrupted spectres, and she feels like they are devouring her thoughts and scrambling her memories. This is because of some of the gravestones being damaged. However, completely destroying the gravestone is an effective way to banish them. Mia then navigates her way to the garden. Using a telescope, Mia can see another place called the Hill, which is a place where the fissure can be viewed from. Fernanda's echo states that the cats, her cats, are the path to the hill. At some point on her adventures, Mia can find Callisto's notebook, and showing it to Agatha, Mia can learn to do the immersion ritual for herself. Using it, she gains access to the roof of Letitia's studio by manipulating time during Rossi's ending, and she sees Letitia following the path to the fissure. She's mumbling about the ooze, the eyes, and the cathedral, and she's repeating other people's memories too. Just as Theo saw, Mia sees Letitia smashing up Tiana Strack's gravestone, screaming that no one should hear it being the melody, as she believes that Tiana Strack's gravestone is the source of this melody. Retracing Letitia's route to the fissure, Mia arrives and the gravestones of the other Stracks are there, dotted about the fissure. Mia finds Letitia there, on a stage, playing. Approaching her, she transforms into a special kind of blood zombie. Entering various gates, taking the correct ones will lead Mia to Letitia's gravestone, and after 3 attempts at destroying it, the monstrous version of Letitia is defeated. After the fight, Letitia says it's exactly how she remembers it, and that she recognizes Mia's eyes. That he, being Verity, didn't run away, and that it was her. That's a bit strange. But Mia finds a keycard with a code hinted at on the back and returns to the underground facility. This essentially wraps up the tragic story of how all the agents inside the graveyard of Melodies perished or went missing, but now that we've heard about the ooze and the Spiral Castle, and since the ooze came from the Spiral Castle, let's head there next. It doesn't take long for Mia to come up against a new adversary, an ooze skeleton. Basically the remnants of a dead person, reanimated and overflowing with black ooze. Ooze is at the centre of what's going on at the castle. But let's discuss the Strack family's eldest son, Yuri. As discussed earlier, the Strack family had a vision. Yuri was journaling at the time about how fed up he was with the cycles, the repetition. In his words, the deplorable routine that is not worthy of his intellect. He dreamt of building his very own castle. He was tired of being woken up by Goliath's alarm clock at 4 AM every morning. He speaks of Tiana and that she's constantly playing the same song. That Andrea cannot sleep, and he mentions her current predicament. He's writing and abruptly stops mid-sentence, and this is when the vision comes to everyone. Yuri becomes obsessed with spirals, immortality, and he dreams of a spiral castle. So he built it. The castle was in line with what Yuri called the spiral theory. The spiral consumes potential energy, causing a distortion that can turn a person's lifetime into ooze. And due to the paranormal nature of the perimeter, it's caused a time distortion in certain areas of the castle, as if time itself was out of sync. Yuri would place artifacts and the castle's short history inside a dedicated room. There's also a dungeon in the castle, and it's said that the ooze skeletons are potentially Yuri's servants, people that he used to kidnap. According to another of Yuri's journals, he considered the ooze to be the elixir of eternity, and reveals that the ooze regenerates itself. He mentions something at the top of one of the castle's towers, a source chamber, but more on that in a minute. Anyway, whilst exploring, Mia eventually comes up against a very large ooze creature with 2 heads. This is the ooze tyrant, and avoiding this behemoth, she finds out about 2 more agents of the Order, Diogo and his father George, and she finds out what work they were doing there at the castle. This father and son duo found something about the ooze that Yuri had overlooked, a deep secret that he could not see. They'd created an anachronic device, and they discovered that the ooze doesn't just desynchronize time in comparison to other places, but that it is the ooze that harbours that secret. Whilst at the castle, Diogo would seclude himself in his office, and he was a spiky individual, leading to him and George having many disagreements. Diogo was pretty rude too, and George had to amend a letter from Diogo to Letitia, apologising for his son's conduct. At some point, George had an accident there at the castle and lost his arm. He was fitted with a prosthetic, but strangely the doctor, Oswald, wrote on George's medical form that he'd never seen a wound heal so quickly. But George was very concerned about his son.
Hey Oswald, I know you'll get mad, but this is important. Can you take a look at Diogo? That damn office is making my boy weirder and weirder.
You're kidding, right? You just got your ass mangled after that damned accident, and you're still more worried about your son than your own self? George, you need to watch your ass too, alright?
You know I would do anything for my son.
After Oswald had examined Diogo, Oswald wrote a letter to George, and he concluded that Diogo was suffering from premature aging, which was a direct result of the prolonged experimentation using the anachronic device. Oswald signed off the letter reminding George of why they are there, in order to eliminate the paranormal inside the perimeter. Nonetheless, the experiments would go on. They discovered that the ooze was acting as an agent that would preserve things, such as vegetation, like this tree, for example. However, shining a UV light on it would accelerate the aging process, causing it to fall. They had many more experiments, such as testing the ooze's reaction to electricity. This resulted in the ooze becoming petrified, making it a solid substance. They needed more energy in order to petrify the ooze for longer and to produce it in much greater quantity. Some experiments were much darker. Diogo and George were responsible for some agents going missing. They were part of their team. They would keep them in the dungeon and would observe them. And there were 3 that we can see, but the truth is that there was very likely a higher number than this. They also experimented on the ooze tyrant. It was during one of these experiments that George lost his arm. They locked the ooze tyrant in the dungeon and exposed it to what they termed high-spectrum radiation. They also noted that the ooze tyrant knew the castle well, hinting that this ooze tyrant could well be what remains of Yuri Strak. In his journal, he speaks of becoming one with the ooze, and the tyrant also has a spiral on its body. Also, the ooze tyrant was found inside something known as the source chamber. Diogo discovered that the UV light has an effect on time within the castle as well. He would request wooden furniture as the UV light would age things very fast. This is a result of the tower clocks. There are 3 of them being desynchronized. So Mia, after ascending the clock towers, realizes that she needs to get them all synchronized, but in order to do that, she needs to head to another area known as the Crystal Caves. The reason that Mia needs to go to the caves first is because of an item that Theo left at the caves. In this letter, we can see that he took a special flashlight with him, and this flashlight is capable of very special things when it comes to the ooze, as it emits something that they call paranormal light. The leader of the work team in the caves was Alan Portlash. The team were to analyse strange green crystals that were inside the caves, but let's focus on the crystals. The team quickly deduced that the crystals are powerful manifestations of the paranormal, and they noted that being near to the crystals gave them the feeling of seeing things from a whole other perspective, in third person, as bizarre as that sounds. They noticed that some crystals are illuminated and some are not, almost seeming as if the ones that are off are merely deactivated. They found one very large crystal in one of many tunnels inside the cave. The smaller crystals are merely fragments of the large crystal. It was around this time that Verity and the Order had begun construction on their underground base using already established tunnels, and Alan and his team constructed a generator to not only power the underground base, but also to provide power for the work that they would be doing down in the caves. With Mia now outside the cave area, she activates a switch on a column, and this, just as the note stated, allows her to see things from a different perspective. The crystals in that area are activated, and she opens a large set of doors. Still seeing things in the third person, it's not long before she's chased by a very large creature down there. There is absolutely no one around, and the majority of the area is dark. Using a map to navigate the complicated cave system, Mia manages to get to the main control room. She opens the door to the main generator. Diagram shows that this is something called the perpetual engine. Another black note tells us that this perpetual engine was needed in order to produce an infinite source of electricity. It mentions a prophecy, but again, more on that soon. In order to get round this issue, and to be able to produce an infinite source of electricity, they put black ooze from the castle on it, and it worked. But we have an important thing to work out, and that is, what exactly happened to the team who were working in this cave. At some point, due to them closely studying the crystals, the team started to suffer distortions in their vision. But that wasn't the only threat, as the large creature was hunting them in the caves. The creature is Goliath. Yep, the child, who was a young member of the Strak family, had mutated into a grotesque abomination. Since Goliath had his eyes cut out by Abraham Strak, this means that the creature is completely blind, but when the crystals are activated, Goliath is able to see via the crystals. Remember I mentioned that the team found a very large crystal in one of the tunnels? Well, this crystal was named the Eye. They believed it may have been the eye of the god of fear. They found a load of eyes that had been drawn all over the place, and these were drawn by Goliath. They then got authorization from Verity, who was hesitant about it for months, to activate the Eye.
Alan Portlash, Eye of the God of Fear activation experiment. Cables check.
Yes, all check.
Goliath's position?
It was drawn to the other side of the cupboard.
Power capacity?
All check, sir.
Activating in 3, 2, 1, now! Activation is working. The crystal is emitting light.
What's this? What the hell?
My sight. Perspective is getting distorted. Something's wrong. What? Obscene inscriptions.
What's going on?
Abort. Abort! Shut it down! Shut it down! Why is this going to happen? Why do I know this? Wait, that noise. I thought Goliath was on the other side of the cavern. Fuck! Let's get out of here! Come quickly! Let's go! Let's go! I know.
I guess that explains how so many died. Needing to know why their vision was affected, they learned that the smaller crystals only affected their vision when they were activated, otherwise they were harmless. The large crystal, the eye, however, affected them even when deactivated. They also saw strange objectives whilst near to the eye. So, rather than getting out of there, which is what I would have done, the team studied further and they wondered what would happen if they activated the eye using electricity. They would try and research, even studying Goliath's behaviour. However, their efforts were being hampered by Goliath, who kept injuring the agents down in the caves.
Alan Portlash, Crystal Cave report. Goliath is still an issue. We're trying all kinds of ways to contain this thing. It's just that, look, it's very smart. It's like the damn beast has learned to move through the cave better than anyone else. Doesn't have eyes, it shouldn't be able to see. And yet, it acts as if it could see the whole place. Well, at least the incidents with Goliath went down a lot after we put a limit on the number of rooms that are powered up at the same time. We can hear it coming if we just pay attention. But I still don't like it. We should be able to contain and eliminate this damn monster. There has to be a way. Maybe with explosives.
The agents all then ended up developing severe eyesight issues.
Oswald Magani, Crystal Cave medical report. Unfortunately, it's quite clear that pretty much everyone in the cave has reached the final stage of vision atrophy. They're all blind. Seeing through the crystals is now the only way for the agents to keep doing their jobs. At least I can still see a little, since I don't spend as much time in the cave as they do. And as for all that happened, and will happen, we had an important decision to make. Because here's the thing. Activating the pillars means activating and connecting the eyes all over the perimeter. Overall, the effects of this will be nearly imperceptible to anyone who can see. But for those who can't, this means being able to see throughout the entire perimeter. Just like the god of fear.
So they would indeed attempt to try and trap Goliath in the containment zone, but since it needed to be activated from the inside, and as the doors shut too quickly, whoever would be brave enough to lure the beast inside would inevitably be killed. Unless, of course, they could find a way to teleport, but that's dumb, right? A letter written by Alan to Callisto states that he and Oswald will have to stay in the cave, as they have to make sure that Goliath doesn't get out of the cave when they activate the pillars, as this is required in order to complete the Enigma of Fear, which of course will bring about the other ending. The letter mentions that this is what the Unhaunted One said. Alan had a plan to kill Goliath, of course, but Oswald, Well, he saw the humanity still left in Goliath and opposed Alan's plan, even going so far as to sabotage the explosives that Alan had set out ready. It turns out that they didn't ever manage to contain Goliath though, and because the explosives were sabotaged, Alan was killed in the process. Inevitably, Oswald felt responsible for Alan's demise. With Mia now knowing what she needs to do what the agents couldn't, to contain and destroy Goliath in order to explore the caves properly. Looking at a console, she sees the map of the caves in numbered sections. Empowering these sections, being careful not to overload the system, she can lure the creature to the containment cell, but of course, this is useless as she won't be able to get out of there quick enough in order to be able to escape. Using the cracked radio she obtained from the graveyard, Mia is able to lure Goliath in and uses the radio's ability in order to teleport outside of the doors before they close, trapping the beast inside. This now explains why Theo was so desperate to retrieve the radio after Rossi had hidden it inside the puzzle box. They needed it to teleport. Now able to explore, Mia finds a small, fast creature in the caves. This is a blood zombie that has merged with crystals. Speaking to Agatha about it, Mia mentions that this creature has a distinct smell to it. Recalling conversations from the ghost echoes in the graveyard in which Theo was referred to as Smelly Boy, this creature is revealed to be Theo. He must have gone there after he'd shot and killed Rossi. He left a voice recording behind.
I'm recording this for myself. I'm in the crystal cave, in the perimeter. Everything's gone to shit, man. If I, or you, are listening to this, please go after Verity. He needs to come back to the perimeter. Everyone knows how we're gonna die, man. Everyone does. Callisto says, the prophecy of the Unhaunted One. He says there's no way anyone can escape their own fear, but Verity, he managed to leave. So I need to give it a shot as well. And I can't leave my uncles behind. They don't deserve this. No one deserves this. I don't care if the God of Fear will bring about the other ending or not. If that were true, it would have happened by now. I will make my own other ending by getting the hell out of here. Uncle Oswald? What happened?
Killing this blood zombie, Mia obtains the flashlight hanging from Theo, and it's exactly what she needs. There's another creature down there, and this is the blood zombie of the Doctor, Oswald. His blood zombie had also merged with the crystals, and as we heard in Theo's recording, Oswald killed his nephew. Since the Goliath has been destroyed, Mia can now also approach the eye, and just as the note said, she receives an objective: to go to Alan's room in the underground area, and to input a code in order to get inside. But this will have to wait for now, as there are more pressing things to attend to. With the crystal flashlight now in her possession, Mia heads back to Spiral Castle. So a little bit on the pillars. The ooze would be pumped into these casts and would be petrified, and the results are the many pillars that Mia has been seeing around the perimeter. We've heard previously that Diogo and George were at odds over their methods and the immorality of them. George was conflicted. Diogo just didn't seem fazed. The test subjects that they'd taken and used to produce ooze was not actually producing enough of it. They had run out of subjects, so how would they generate enough ooze in order to build the rest of the pillars? Through the perpetual engine and via something else. Earlier on we mentioned the source chamber, the area where the ooze tyrant was originally found. The chamber itself is a massive open area with a throne in the middle of it. Diogo and George's biggest conflict though was over who should take the throne, so to speak, as one of them were to be the source. George wanted to do it, but Diogo said that George was too old. Diogo wrote a letter to Callisto telling him what had to happen. We also discovered earlier on that Diogo was suffering from premature aging as a result of the time distortion in the castle. Through his studies and research, he used the crystal flashlight and thought to use this same type of light, but on a much larger scale. Alan Portlash had some of the crystals sent over from the caves to the castle, and Diogo had them installed as spotlights. This would prevent his premature aging, essentially stopping him aging, and this, coupled with the endless energy from the perpetual engine in the crystal caves, would allow him to keep producing an endless amount of ooze. There's a bit more to this though, which you'll see later. This is something also seen with the ooze skeletons and the ooze tyrant, as shining the paranormal light onto them makes them literally stop in place. So Diogo would take the throne. He left his father specific instructions that once they had generated enough ooze in order to complete all of the pillars, he was to get him out of there. But George would not be able to free his son.
There is almost enough ooze for the last pillar. And then I'll be able to get my son out of there. Why are these clock towers so far away? Callisto said that this was the last part of my rope. Just finish the last pillar and then we're done. I just need to synchronize the last clock. No, I need to get him out.
As you heard, George was attacked by the ooze tyrant. Mia needs to synchronize the 3 clocks in the towers in order to gain access to the source chamber. Ascending one of the towers, Mia finds a note saying to synchronize the ticks, so she does just that, and that's 1 of the clocks down and 2 to go. Ascending the next tower, Mia uses a clue about how to synchronize the 2nd clock. She uses her UV light, and this creates enough force to propel the clock hands forward. 1 last clock to go. The final tower is only accessible from outside the castle, so going down to an ooze-filled river, Mia sends Loopy through a pipe and he turns on a generator. This hardens or petrifies the ooze, and this allows Mia to walk on it over to the other side. On this small bank are the casts that George was using in order to create the pillars. Speeding up the small generator and activating another one, Mia crosses over to the other side to another bank and enters through the door to the 3rd and final tower. The problem with this clock tower is that ever since some ooze fell onto the gears of the clock, they lose control and are unable to slow down long enough for the clock to be able to synchronize. Now that she has the paranormal light, and with its ability to stop the ooze, Mia is able to shine it onto the gears and stabilize them long enough for the clock to synchronize. Heading through a door in one of the towers, she goes through to the source chamber. Sure enough, she finds Diogo sat on the throne. He is the source of the ooze. His life being converted into the stuff. It would be pumped down into the casts, and after it had been petrified, it would form the pillars. The ooze tyrant, the king of perfect timing, decides to show up, and Mia uses her UV flashlight on the support chains, and this ages them, making them weak to physical damage. Smacking them with her crowbar causes the chains to shatter, and each one results in Diogo aging that little bit more. Using Loopy to constantly keep the ooze drained, and after the last one has been destroyed, the light rig falls on top of the ooze tyrant, killing it. Speaking with Diogo, he says that he's now free. He asks who Mia is, and then he dies. The ooze around the throne petrifies. Diogo dropped a keycard for his room with a hint to the code on it. Alright, so with 3 keycards to different rooms in the underground base, it's time to go and check out what's inside the rooms. Since Mia found Letitia's card first, let's go there. Cracking the code on her card, Mia enters the room, and as expected, there's a load of recording and sound equipment inside. There's a photo of Letitia too, but there's also an echo. In the echo, Letitia speaks about getting a strange feeling when walking next to the radios that the agents use. She expresses her confusion that the radio parts aren't broken, yet she keeps hearing a song echoing and calling to her. She can't focus on the music because of the wind and the outside noise, so after turning down the sound options in the menu, yeah, seriously, and standing next to a radio, a bunch of symbols and shapes appear. Now to Oswald's room. She finds a letter in there written by Oswald. The letter mentions an experiment that Oswald was doing with the crystals inside the base's kitchen. He wanted to find out why Alan and the others had developed vision atrophy. The problem Oswald faced is that he could not get the room dark enough to do the experiment and simply did not have time to complete it. Upon going into the kitchen and turning the game's brightness down, this leads to the appearance of more strange shapes. Finally, with Diogo's card in her possession, Mia cracks it and enters the room. She finds a photo of Diogo's wife and kid, along with that, on a board, another odd clue, and it shows lockers in a morgue and an area on which to stand with the word option. Going to this area and opening up the options menu provides the third and final piece of what seems to be a door code. But where to use them? Well, the only other area to explore is the area called the Unhaunted One's wing. But Mia needs a code. Exploring outside some more, Mia comes across a cathedral. Unfortunately, the doors are blocked from the other side, but after dealing with another blood zombie, she finds another keycard and a code. Going back to the door, Mia uses the extremely hard code hinted at on the card and gains access to the Unhaunted One's wing. In the corridor, Mia finds an agent profile for Sophia Besat, Callisto Besat's sister. She finds the main area of this wing pretty messy. Something happened here. She also finds a medical form written by Oswald, which would detail the condition of a child with green eyes. Was it not for the fact that everything is blacked out? Using the UV light reveals that this child is the Unhaunted One, and the source. A tape which details a medical report from Oswald explains just how different this child is.
Alright, Sophia, we're rolling. Let's go. The first exam is done. Indeed, the patient is full of scars all over his body. But that big scar on his face seems to have been caused by a fall in his early childhood period, when he was still a baby. That is, he was injured right after birth. He also has completely unnatural responses and reflexes.
Wow.
Yeah. To be honest, I can't get any kind of reaction out of him. You see, during the exam, it felt like I just didn't exist. He didn't respond at all, either verbally or instinctively. And then there are the eyes. I still can't explain the coloring and the behavior of his eyes. I've never seen anything like this before. Other than that, the blood samples show that he's relatively healthy, except for a bit of malnourishment, for obvious reasons. I believe, Sophia, that the greater answers regarding this patient lie hidden in your line of work.
Yeah, I figured as much. Thank you, Oswald.
Since she was able to find the 3 codes, Mia puts them together and enters what was called the Forbidden Room. A blood zombie is inside along with a gravestone, and when Mia does the immersion ritual on it, it shows her father's death. What on earth happened here, and why is Verity's gravestone inside this room? Let's go back about 30 years or so. With Abraham Strack leading the Cult of Fear, their belief and their prophecy hinted at by the book on the lectern in the mansion was that a child would be born from their cult, and that child would be known as the Unhaunted One. The Stracks' belief was not a new thing though, as the revelation came to the Stracks hundreds of years ago. After the disappointment that was Goliath, Andrea had another child, but she would die in childbirth. Abraham's eyes then turned green, and he dropped the child. The child was named Jazza, which is an Arabic name and means fearless. As far as Abraham was concerned, Jazza was an answer to the prophecy, living proof that the generations of Stracks before him were following the correct path, and that everything that has and will happen is contained within a single mark. Jazza was the Unhaunted One. When Jazza was born, this is when the paranormal activity began to invade reality, and when the Stracks' craziness went into overdrive, as they all received their different visions as to what their roles would be in the Enigma of Fear. As we've mentioned, Yuri was in his room when the visions came, journaling about his frustration at living there at the mansion, and was dreaming about his castle. He would of course build his castle, but in his quest for immortality, he paid a high price. Goliath was sat in his room, blinded and in pain. Through his fear, he found his chance to see again, becoming a prisoner of his own sight, but would live in solitude and freedom. Tiana had gone to play piano, and the fissure had opened up after she played a melody that was never created, but that was only repeated, that she had written down and played after hearing it herself. 12 years passed, and Jazza was now a young boy. Abraham, meanwhile, had been busy painting murals in the cathedral he hoped would instill fear into Jazza, and they were now complete. He then punches Jazza and knocks him out. The reason that Abraham built the Cathedral of Fear, though, was because he believed that he served a further purpose, that he would become the god of fear. He chained Jazza up. Also, people had been going missing whilst in the perimeter, so the order had now arrived in order to investigate the Strack family and their cult.
We're not here just to destroy a creature, or put a stop to a cult gone mad. There is a mystery to this place. Something far greater than anything I've ever seen. Sophia and I believe we've already found the source of the paranormal in this place. And it's definitely not what we expected. This is a mission that needs to be carried out with caution. And we all have a part to play.
After being chained up, Jazza would escape the chains, go to the kitchen, grab a knife and would kill Abraham, using his blood to draw the mark of fear on the floor. It was at this point, as recorded on Callisto's voice recorder, that Verity came running into the mansion and asked Jazza what he'd done. Jazza was then taken by Verity into the underground base.
We've been inside the perimeter for a few months now, and we still haven't found a concrete solution to our main problem. As I'd imagined, there are no ways of contacting the outside world from inside here, and we can't leave this place before we understand the effects that forgetfulness could have on Jazzer. On any other mission, we would do a thorough sweep. We would destroy what was necessary and then leave. But not here. Not in this place. Callisto believes that the answer is somehow hidden in those insane straw prophecies, and Sophia seems to agree with him. In reality, she believes that trying to decipher this place may be the only way to resolve the situation, without exposing the boy to even greater trauma.
Being examined by Oswald, they discovered that the boy didn't speak and was in a constant state of apathy. So Sophia and Verity would attempt to grow closer to Jazza in order to get him to open up emotionally. Going to Verity's office at some point, Jazza overhears a conversation between Verity, Sophia, and Callisto, with the latter wanting to interact with Jazza so that he can better understand the cathedral. But Verity is unmoved, stating that Jazza is traumatized and that it would be dangerous for them to expose him to more childhood trauma. Callisto points out the fact that he isn't exactly a normal kid, and points out his paranormal exposure, along with his eyes, and the fact that he said nothing since he got there. Jazza attempts to say something, but he is unable to. Sophia then turns to him and tells him to go back to his room and to stay there. So he goes back to his room and waits there. Sophia and Verity return and comfort him, but Verity was at his wit's end, and he locked Sophia away. Agents would start to talk about how they never saw Sophia anymore. Callisto would write to his sister, asking her why she hadn't even left the room. He wanted to know what was going on. No one knew anything. Heck, even Sophia's doctor's appointments were being cancelled by Verity.
I'm recording this knowing that I'm going to erase it soon afterwards. I just need to listen to myself. I'm the only one who can do this now. I can't recognize myself as Verity anymore. When we arrived here, the objective was clear. No matter how long it would take, no matter what the cost, we would complete the mission and leave after that. Eyes always open. Everyone here needs me. They're the team I put together. All these agents trust me. But now, it's not about me anymore. We knew this was a mistake, and yet we still made that choice. I've given it my best to try and solve everything in time. All the teams were given orders to keep investigating, to keep trying to find any breakthroughs. And yet, everything seems so far from over. These last few months, she's had to stay here, isolated, away from the other agents, from her own brother, even from Jazzer. Oh, poor Jazzer. What this place was capable of doing to a child who was born in here. I can't let this happen again. I have to take her somewhere else before...
Verity, what are you doing?
Nothing. I'm just doing some mission reports.
Look at the time. You should stop working. You're too tired. Just come to bed.
I'm going, Sophia. I'm done here.
A little later though, Jazza heard a scream coming from the Forbidden Room, Sophia's room. Sophia had died in the Forbidden Room. hence the blood zombie inside, and Verity would leave soon afterwards. Jazza said that Verity will come back at some point, and that he always comes back. But why was Sophia isolated? Locked away, Sophia would record a message for Jazza.
You may have noticed that there's something different going on with me. One day you'll make sense of all this, but don't worry. Your things will still be here. Everything will continue as it always has. I'll just have to stay away for a little while. And you keep obeying Verity, all right? Please. I know he's a bit strict sometimes, but he's doing everything he can for you. He will continue to look after you for as long as it takes until he finally makes sense of all this as well. Until you can leave this place with everyone. You never deserved this. You were cast without choice into this world, and you were forced to suffer a punishment that should never have been yours. But I promise you, one day you'll be free of all this. One day you'll make your own choice. I'm here trying to make this all about you, little one. But I think we both know that I'm the one who's stalling here, so I don't have to leave. I'll never, never forget you, Jazzer.
So that implies that Sophia was pregnant. She and Verity had started to develop feelings for one another, and Mia was conceived. Verity took Mia away from there, and he left the perimeter. He forgot pretty much all of what happened there, but there was one name that he could not forget, and that was the name Jazzer. Stepping out of his wing after hearing Sophia's death, Jazzer approaches Callisto, who is having visions. He is being shown that Verity was the one who killed Sophia. Jazzer then tells Callisto that only the god of fear can bring about the other ending. Callisto then becomes obsessed with bringing about this other ending. He knew his part in the prophecy. All the steps must be completed in order for the other ending to come about. And this is because everything needs to be ready for the moment that Verity returns. This is the ending of the Enigma of Fear. You may have noticed that the agents were constantly talking about their roles, doing their part, and their desire to achieve the other ending. But what are their roles, and what is this other ending? As seen through the eye in the cave, roles are given by the god of fear and essentially give the person their next role in the commencement of the Enigma of Fear. The Unhaunted One, Jazzer's eyes, work in the same way as the Eye of God in the caves. The pillar petrification plan was put in place, and this would ensure that the pillars would be completed so that the other ending could occur. After the pillars were completed, they were to be moved to the graveyard of Melodies, as this would apply the mark of fear in the Great Fissure. Everything that we see the agents of the Order doing, or did, was all of them playing their part in the other ending being achieved. The agents, of course, all wanted to escape, so they played their part in order to try and make that happen. Then, of course, Verity would return. So, as we've heard, everything was put into place ready for Verity's return to the perimeter. And upon his return, he arrived and grabbed a sword from his car and a gun. He made his way to the Strack mansion and went down into the basement and into the strange room that was covered in words. Callisto was stood in the middle of the room. He asks Verity what the greatest fear of all is. Verity is confused as to what happened to Callisto. He says that fear is impossible when you know what's coming. Verity replies that every story needs an ending, and that is why he is back. To end all this and to save her. This enrages Callisto as Verity abandons Sophia to forget her. He says that he understood the prophecies of the Unhaunted One and he solved the Enigma of Fear. He says that he will be the one to bring her back. Callisto says that it's time for him to complete his final objective and he and Verity fight. Callisto has fast reflexes, but Verity prevails. Of course, Callisto knew this was going to happen, which is why he was not scared. He's known what his ending is going to be, as he's already seen it. Whilst dying, Callisto asks Verity if he remembers anything about what happened 20 or so years ago. Verity replies that he's always known that he's going to die in the perimeter. He says that he didn't go there to remember what happened, but to protect what matters most to him. Callisto says that the god of fear is watching, tells him he'll see him on the other ending, and he then dies. Something happens and Verity is knocked out and is out cold. Jazza then enters the room and takes Verity to the cathedral, chaining him up. Before we continue, there are a few things to tie off first. There's been a lot of mention of memories, and Callisto asks Verity if he remembers anything. Essentially, when people leave the perimeter, they forget what happened and why they were there. This is best shown through a note in the forest, which shows that people who had been in the perimeter for years had left, and later returned thinking that it was the first time they had been there. But what's going on with their memories?
Verity, I have just uncovered something huge in the graveyard. I came running to tell you, but it seems that something must be going on with Sophia. So, I'll just leave it recorded here. Now I see why people forget everything once they leave the perimeter. In fact, we don't create any actual memories in here. All our memories are etched into marks in the graveyard. So, if anyone leaves the perimeter, their memories are left behind, engraved in a mark.
Everyone who's visited the perimeter has one of these gravestones. Perhaps that is why Verity's gravestone was there in the Forbidden Room. Maybe he wanted to take it with him when he left so that he'd remember? I don't really know on this one. But what happened in order for the perimeter to exist the way it does? Well, as mentioned, when Jazza was born, the Unhaunted One, this weakened the veil between the real world and the other paranormal one. The paranormal was then able to invade the area. When it comes to the capabilities of the ooze, there's also a loop implied here too.
At first, I believed that the ooze that was exposed to the paranormal light of the crystals would be able to freeze time around it. But that is actually an illusion. It is something far greater than that. By adjusting the energy intensity levels of the paranormal light on my anachronic device, I realized that the pointer was not standing still. It was as if it was vibrating, shaking. And that's when it hit me. The ooze is not freezing time. It is repeating time. The freeze effect caused by the flashlights is just a consequence of a microsecond being repeated again and again. So much so that it can't be seen with the naked eye. But this only happens because the energy usage of the flashlights is very low. The bigger the energy source connected to the crystals, the bigger the time interval being repeated by the ooze. That is, larger energy sources would be able to repeat entire seconds, minutes, hours. There would be no limits to an area affected by the ooze. I don't know the deterministic implications of this, nor if there's any kind of variation within the cycles. I don't believe that the ooze is capable of storing information to repeat it perfectly. It doesn't matter to me, to be quite honest.
It could be that the pillars and the ooze in them, coupled with the crystals as part of the Enigma of Fear, have activated a loop wherein Verity will return repeatedly until the other ending is brought about, which of course, according to the prophecy, is something that only the God of Fear can bring about. The thing is that what happens inside the perimeter does not affect anything outside. Everything outside remains the same. The changes that happen in the perimeter stay inside the perimeter. Now, given that he's connected to the God of Fear, kind of like the Eye, Jazza would know that Verity would get loose from the chains. He's seen this ending multiple times. Going into what was named the ending hall, Jazza grabs his sword and waits for Verity. As he'd seen, Verity had indeed gotten free from the chains and confronted Jazza. Verity says that Jazza's name is the one name he could never forget. They then fight. Jazza's skills are ridiculous, but of course this is because he's simply memorized the fight. Verity can't even get a swing in on him. Jazza then thrusts his sword through Verity, who returns the favour. Verity remarks on Jazza having the same eyes, and Jazza replies that this ending has happened once again, meaning that this has happened multiple times. They both then die. Mia is then shown to be outside the cathedral doors, noting again that the door is blocked, and the loop repeats. You remember that Mia at some point could go to the cathedral, but upon trying to open the doors they were blocked from the other side. Well, if after Verity has freed himself from the chains, he unblocks it. During the fight with Jazza, if Verity wins the fight, then Verity will kill Jazza, and Mia will show up, since the door has now been unblocked. After Mia gives her dad a scolding for disappearing on her, Jazza starts to laugh. Verity says that he's there to make sure his vision would come through, that it was the only way to protect her. Jazza starts talking about Mia's eyes, and rather maniacally, he starts asking who Mia is. Verity is about to explain something, but a split, a fracture takes place, and Mia and Loopy find themselves at the center of it and having to avoid a ghostly set of hands. The hands of the god of fear. Acquiring pieces for the fractured floor ritual, Mia is knocked back and Loopy is transported somewhere else. Loopy has to activate the symbols, and he does so. He sees Samuel and Agatha there. They don't seem to sense anything is happening, and they ask if something is wrong with Mia. And quite bizarrely, Samuel then asks who Mia is. Then Loopy finds himself in the Strack mansion, and he enters Jazza's room. Jazza says that they are past the end and nothing else exists there. He's disappointed in how unfulfilled this has left him feeling, citing the emptiness of the ending to be the reason. He calls Loopy Big Head, which is something that Mia has been calling him. Exiting the room, Loopy follows Jazza through a long tunnel, which connects all the prominent locations in the perimeter. Eventually arriving at an open area, Samuel, Agatha, and Verity are all there. Speaking to Samuel, he seems to know Jazza quite well, calling him Jay and asking what's up with his face. Agatha seems to know him too, but comments on his different appearance and says that he should take Loopy to get his hair trimmed to match. Speaking to Verity though, he asks if Jazza needs anything, and Jazza responds to Verity calling him Dad. Jazza speaks to Loopy and says that it's clear he still remembers her. Activating more symbols on the ritual sign, Jazza carries Loopy over to Mia. The two then talk. Jazza introduces himself as the Unhaunted One, and they talk about various topics. Jazza explains that what he was doing wasn't exactly time travelling, as in there nothing has ever started or ended, implying a loop. He says that the perimeter is like a piece detached from the rest of things. He explains that everything out in the real world is unchanged except for himself and Mia. He goes on and says that Mia has broken the cycle that has shaped the history of the place and has broken the Enigma of Fear. Mia states that since she was born in the middle of the cycle that has just been broken, she should technically not exist anymore. Jazza says the goal of this was to achieve some sort of impossible intervention, the god of fear. In terms of Loopy, Mia reveals that Verity rescued Loopy on a previous mission and took him home. Mia then prepares to leave. Jazza says that everything in that story was predetermined and that he never got to choose, but that now he is free to go somewhere else and to make friends and to see different places. He says that there's one choice that no one has ever been able to make, and that is that they were born and cast into an unknown reality and existence. Jazza says that they now have the same eyes, and he walks off, ceasing to exist. In a flash of bright light, Mia is then thrown out of the perimeter and back into the real world, with all the pillars, blood zombies, and things of a paranormal nature gone. Samuel and Agatha are there, as are Verity and Loopy. Speaking with her father, he leads Mia to a gravestone, and it's the gravestone of her mother, Sophia Bassat. Verity says that he does not remember anything, but says that maybe it's for the best. Asking Verity about Jazza, Verity replies that Jazza was just a name. They then leave and go home, and the game then ends. But it's revealed at the end that this photo of Jazza as a baby is now a photo of Mia. One thing that has to be noted is the white streak that has now appeared in Mia's hair, which may indicate that she is now the Unhaunted One. Mia was the one that had to go there in order for the other ending to take place, so that, according to the prophecy, she would become the Unhaunted One. We see in this book, as one part of this picture shows the Unhaunted One on one side of the Mark of Fear, the other half is missing. But in the cathedral, the other half is there, and it shows a female side of the Unhaunted One, furthering the theory that Mia becoming the Unhaunted One was part of the prophecy all along, and that she has now broken the cycle. I think a lot of this story is left open to interpretation. I've tried to cover as much as I could make sense of. If you can think of anything I haven't covered, then please feel free to leave it in the comments below. But that is the story for Enigma of Fear. I hope you enjoyed this breakdown, and if you did, then please leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already. But for now, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.